The other day when we looked at putting the chili forge back into top running condition, I mentioned that I was going to build a little forge primarily out of fire brick and that I was still waiting for a burner to arrive to do that. Well, the burner's here, so I thought I would take a look at this project and show you most of what I'm doing. This is not going to be a tutorial or a complete how-to, just sort of a what I'm up to and what I'm doing, and we'll show most of the steps that go into this. But I think you need to do your own research before building a gas forge. I am not an expert on gas forges. That's one of the reasons I prefer to buy them than to make them, and one of the reasons I don't often make my own burners. I have. They never work quite as well as the ones I buy from people who are extremely good at it, like this burner. This is from hybridburners.com. That is Jared Price, and he's been making these for a long time. I've been aware of these burners for quite a few years. He's got a good reputation. I should be very happy with this. This is the smallest forge burner he makes. He makes a little bit smaller one that he is really meant to be used outside of a forge as a very hot propane only torch, or propane air torch, no acetylene, or no oxygen I mean. But this is the smallest one he recommends for building a forge. And I suspect it's probably overkill for the little forge I'm going to make. But that's okay. That's not going to hurt anything. I just turn the gas pressure down and we'll be fine. The purpose of this forge is just to have something that puts a little less heat into the room, doesn't have to heat up a great big fire chamber to do the job, and that is very durable and long-lasting, but also very easy to repair when it needs it. And that's some of the trade-offs you have when you build a gas forge. Gas forges need some sort of refractory material to resist the heat, to reflect the heat back into the chamber, to insulate, to keep as much heat in. Just like insulating your house or wearing a heavy jacket on a winter day, you're trying to keep the heat in. And all these different refractory materials do that to one extent or the other. The problem is the best insulators are also the most fragile. They're most easily damaged. So when you're running them at high heat, they're going to suffer more. And if you aren't real careful putting things in and out of the forge, and you manage to scrape the sides or bump into the back or poke the wall or something like that because you're not perfectly straight in and out, the best insulating refractories are also the ones that are going to suffer the most. So the best insulator is quite likely this stuff. And this is sold under several different names. K-Wool, Insa-Wool, I think I've seen it as Insa-Tough or something like that. And this is a ceramic fiber bat. And it is really a very good insulator. A couple inches of this with a forge up at welding heat, you might even be able to put your hand on the outside of the forge because it insulates so well. But it is extremely fragile. It is also friable, which means it puts fibers into the air. And that's not a good thing. When you work with it, you need to wear a dust mask or a respirator. You don't want to breathe this. Ideally, you should work outside in fresh air, change your clothes after you're done, get all the dust off of you. And even so, in that state, the MSDS sheet on this says that it's mostly an irritant. It's not something that is highly toxic or going to hurt you. But after it's been heated, it starts to form silicones, and it'd be worth doing your research on this as well. Don't just take my word for it. And those things have potential to cause cancer. It is listed as a possible cancer-causing agent when you breathe it, somewhat like asbestos would be. On the other hand, asbestos was banned because it was so bad, and nobody's banning this stuff right now, so I don't think it's as bad as asbestos, but why take a chance? Now, you're probably not going to wear a respirator every time you're in the shop working with your forge. That's impractical. So if you're using this stuff, one of its disadvantages is it has to be sealed up. Frequently, something like ITC 100 is used for that. There are other coatings. There are rigidizers that you can put on before the ITC 100, refractory cements, refractory clays. Some people use this on the outside layer of the forge and then put castable refractory over the top of it. Lots of choices that you can go with. Do your research, do your homework, figure out what's best, check with the suppliers. This piece of wool came from Larry Roderick in Texas. I've linked to him before, but I'll put another link to his email in the description. So if you're looking for the wool, talk to him. I don't know if he sells this stuff or not, but there are other dealers out there that do, places like High Temperature Tools. Chili Forge sells this, so you can repair the inside of their forge if you need to, but you could also just buy it from them to use to work on stuff. And sometimes you can find this stuff on eBay. Lots of places you can get it, but do your research on what product you want. They aren't all the same. They aren't just one replaces the other. Some of them are higher temperature, some of them resist flux better, some of them are easier to apply. It's whatever you want to use, but do some research. I think I said that already. So that's the best insulating refractory there is probably this stuff. But it's also the most fragile. So I don't really like it unless I just absolutely need a forge that'll get as hot as it can. Like the chili forge, I need to be able to weld in, and I don't think I would get it up to welding temperature if it was lined with something else. So I have to accept that the refractory is a little bit more fragile, and it's got probably close to a 1-inch coat of ITC 100 on it, so that makes it a lot better. Another material is the insulating board. Again, this is a ceramic fiber material, and it is rigid, so it holds its shape better, and it isn't going to deteriorate quite as easily as the ceramic wool. But if you're rubbing things against it as you put it in and out, you're going to wear a hole in it, and you are going to release fibers. So there's still some issues even with the hard insulating board, but you can buy this in sheets. I think there's something like 2-foot by 3-foot sheets or 2-by-2 sheets, and you can cut it with a razor knife. And if you're making a flat-topped forge, that can be very nice. Although I've had problems in the past with a forge that used this for the top. It held up great at forging temperatures. Once I got up to forge welding temperatures, though, it started to sag just a little bit, and once it did that, heat from the burners got up around the top of it, and then it started to warp the sheet metal top, and one thing led to another, and that's one reason I no longer use the forge that used to have this as a liner, and no longer plan to make a forge that way. Very easy to build, and if you're not at welding heat, it works pretty well, but it's not ideal. It's really good in the back of a door if you've got a vertical door or a sliding door or something like that in your forge. This is pretty good stuff in it because it's lightweight, it holds its shape, not going to fall out, and it's not going to get abused there. It's just sitting there. So it's not bad stuff. I mentioned castable refractories. There are all sorts of different castable refractories. I frequently deal with a place in Pueblo here. It's called Refractories West. And from time to time, when I'm trying to figure out what it is I want for a project, they'll let me go back in the warehouse and they'll show me various things. And their warehouse is huge, and there are pallets and pallets of different kinds of castable refractory. I would never be able to keep up with everything they have. But they serve big industry. They serve the steel mill. They serve mining operations that are melting ore and doing that kind of stuff and relining crucibles that hold a couple of tons of material. And so they have a lot of different refractory materials there. They have the KO wool, they have the insulating board, they have fire bricks, and lots of castable stuff. What they don't have are things like kiln shelves for sacrificial forge floors, because big industry doesn't care about that stuff. They only care about the more durable refractories. But it's a pretty good source to have locally, because I can go there and I can ask questions and I can talk to them and get what I need right there, unless it's something like a kiln shelf and then I have to mail order that somewhere else. After that, the next thing would be fire bricks. And soft fire bricks, which are very lightweight, are a pretty good insulator. They're more durable than either of these materials. They are easier to work with than a castable refractory, but they are not as durable as a hard fire brick is. The hard fire bricks are big, heavy, solid bricks, and they are very durable, but they aren't the best insulators, and it takes a long time to heat them up. As you go from the ceramic wool to a hard fire brick or an all castable sort of forge liner, you are sacrificing some efficiency for durability. And that's always the way it's going to be with a forge. Do you need one that's very durable, or one that heats up fast and uses a little bit less fuel? This forge I'm making is going to be durable. It's going to be easy to build. It's going to be easy to maintain. If I need to replace a brick, you just put another brick in, because I'm using full brick. Exactly the size it comes. I don't have to cut stuff or trim stuff or do anything like that. So it's going to be a very simple forge, but it's going to take a little longer to heat up the brick than it would if it was Kaolin, and it's probably never going to reach the temperatures that a Kaolin line forge would. So there's a trade-off there. In some ways, I'm doing everything exactly wrong. If you were to talk to all of the experts on forge building, there's a lot of things that I am not doing in the best way here, but like I say, there's a trade-off. To get the features that I really want in this forge, I have to sacrifice some of those other things. So, what's this forge going to look like? The floor of the forge is going to be a single hard fire brick, the most durable thing that I can make in the floor. Underneath that, I'm going to use a sheet of the ceramic fiber board, and this will be completely covered by brick, but it will help provide increased insulation, so this brick isn't just radiating heat right out to the forge body. It's going to have some sort of insulative material there. Next to that, because I want a little bit extra height, I'm using 2 spacers of the same material. And that's just there as a shim for 2 soft fire bricks, which will be the walls of the forge. On top of that, kind of looking like Stonehenge here, will be 2 more soft fire bricks. And around that, I'm going to come up the side, and I'm going to wrap over the top with the Kaolin. All of this will be enclosed in a sheet metal body right up the top here, but not this brick. I'm going to leave that brick free, so if my floor has a problem, I can slide it out. And the sheet metal frame will not be welded. It'll be bolted. It'll be welded at the top, so it has to slide over, but it'll bolt to the bottom tray that holds everything, so that I can remove it easily if I need to replace a side brick. And that top will then have a place for the burner. And that burner will just go straight down the middle. It's another thing I'm doing that isn't the best practice. For a round or oval forge will circulate heat better, and in theory, if you bring the burner into the side, it will circulate heat better. But that complicates the construction, makes it harder to get the holes in the fire brick, and this forge is quick, simple, and reliable. It isn't about super efficiency, and I still think this burner is going to put out so much heat that I'm just not going to worry about it. And we're going to go ahead and go straight down with it. So the sheet metal top will have a collar that this burner drops into. And we'll show you how I do all that as we get there. The reason this board sticks out so far is that I am going to put another hard fire brick in the front and the back to have a little shelf or stock support, so I don't have to have a separate stock stand. Things can just slide in and out right there. So that's the basic design. The next thing I need to do is go cut sheet metal, and I'm just going to go do that off camera, and I'll show you what I come up with, and then we'll weld it up after that. But I don't think you need to watch me running a torch. It just makes the video longer than it needs to be. Okay, I've got a base cut here, and the base will get framed around with some 1/8 by 2 inch flat bar that'll get welded to the bottom, and that will leave room for the brick and provide a nice border all the way around the bottom of the forge that's tall enough to cover this. I was going to use angle iron, but I didn't have any angle iron that strong or that tall. It was all smaller stuff. So this will be a nice border. It'll keep all the brick in, keep everything together, and then the shell that goes over this will tuck down inside on these outer edges. The reason there are steps cut out of this are because I'm going to wrap this with Kaolin, so this right around the actual forged chamber is going to be an inch bigger on either side, so I cut these steps out. That'll allow for the K.O. wool. But out here where it's just a brick apron for a tool rest, I don't need that, so that's been cut in. So now it's time to weld all this up. I'm going to kind of mock up the forge on top of the floor here. And because I'm going to have part of the shell of the forge will have to come down to contain the side walls, I'm going to put a spacer in just to kind of represent that and guarantee that I don't make this too small. And then I can line everything up. I can put my ends on here. And then it'll be time to start welding. And I'm going to weld up a frame all the way around here. Once the ends are in place, then these sides don't matter so much because that gets that K.O. wool wrapping. And if this isn't perfect size, the K.O. wool will compress. They say a good welder is proud of their welds and lets them show. That's why I grind my welds, and also why we don't really show the welding process as part of the channel here at Black Bear Forge. If you want to learn welding, there are way better people to teach you welding than what I can. I'm just kind of showing you things that you might be able to do in your shop if you happen to own welding equipment and if you have any level of competency whatsoever with it. Works out okay for me, but again, I just don't feel like I'm qualified to teach other people. So here is the base for our forge. Now this is going to get that piece of fiberboard in it, and that'll be the next step as far as the base is concerned. So I'm going to put this down on the bench and just set this on top of it. Get it lined up with all the edges. Then I should be able to mark it just by squeezing it in there a little bit. And that shows me where I need to cut my little corners out. You can just do this with a knife, a razor knife, even a pocket knife, but I would recommend wearing this. And of course, clean all that up when you're done. And this should just fit right in there for lucky. Of course, we're not that lucky. So I'm going to do a little bit more trimming on it. Just a hair too long, it looks like. And we get one brick for the bottom, and we get two little spacers for the sides. This will get KO wool wrapped around most of this, so this slot here will get KO wool tucked into it, and the outer frame, or the outer shell, will also tuck into that. So that's the way that all fits. And then if we're lucky, a brick fits on each end. So I think we are a success so far. The next thing to do is going to be to make the outer shell and then prep the top bricks for the burner. For the outer shell, I'm going to make it in 3 pieces. I thought about trying to bend it, but I don't have a big bending brake, so I think it wouldn't go very smoothly. So I'll cut it in 3 pieces, weld up the corners, and then weld a front and a back with a door opening on it. So I'm going to cut those pieces, and then we will join you right back here in a little bit. I've got a top piece for the forge. This will need to have a hole drilled in it for a tube that will hold the burner. I've got my 2 sides that will fit in here. Remember, this gets an inch of KO wool up here, so this actually sits up high like that. So there's 2 sides, a top, and then I'll have 2 ends, and the ends I'm going to need to mark for a doorway. In fact, that one's going to need to be trimmed down a little bit, so there's still some fitting and fussing to do here. But then I'll mark a door opening on the end here that will sit back away from the edge of the brick, and it'll go all the way down to the floor, and that way this floor brick in here I should be able to pull out without disassembling anything else. I think this is where I'm going to call it a day. That looks like it's going to take another partial day, if not another full day. I really thought this would be a one-day project, but as soon as I start filming stuff and moving cameras and lights around, it seems like things always take a lot longer than you planned on. So perhaps it'll be a full day tomorrow, and we'll get 2 full videos out of it. Hopefully I can do it in less than a full day tomorrow so I can get back to some of my other work and get some stuff done. But I think this forge is going to be a nice practical little forge for what I want it for. And I want it for little things like these hinges, and when I make chest handles and things like that, I use a lot of little parts. And the big forge does this wonderfully, but I don't need to heat up that much forge to do a little part like this. So having a smaller forge will be nice, and having a forge that is very easy to reline if necessary, or better yet, it's not going to need relining as often because of the hard fire brick. But yes, it will be less efficient. It's not going to heat as well. It's going to take a little longer to come up to heat, but I think in the long run it's going to be fair trade-offs But everything you do with gas forges is a trade-off between door opening size, stock length, heat efficiency, durability, lots of things that you have to consider when you're looking at gas forges. I don't intend this video to be an instructional video on how to build a gas forge. I'm just showing you what I'm doing, and you'll be able to understand then when you see this forge in use why it is what it is. But if you want to build a forge, really do a lot more research than just watching this video. This is not a tutorial, it is not instructional. Working with propane or natural gas is very dangerous. They are highly flammable and they are explosive in the right conditions, and you need to have a good idea what you're doing, or you need to buy a forge. So don't use this as a blueprint for building your own forge. That's not what it's meant to be. If you do so, you are on your own. I really would rather none of you blow yourself up. And there's the disclaimer. Because some videos I think need a disclaimer. Anyways, I hope you found that interesting. I hope it entertained you to some extent. But I do hope you can get out to your shop. I hope you can make something. I hope you can stay safe. And you'd better wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next one.